Okay, check. Okay, everybody. Hey, everybody. We are back. It's been a while since we did an interview. I believe a couple weeks have went by. I think it was midsummer. This isn't Sit Down with Nin'na. It's just a regular fun interview. We got Samuel Crowfoot in the house today. So I'll just let Samuel give his introduce himself, tell us a little about himself and everything. So yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Hey, thank you, man, for inviting me here. It's been a pleasure. Okay, Siksika, Istawanako, Sipiu Maka. My traditional name is Night Runner, given to me by my father. Originally, I'm from Siksika. I grew up here as a kid, and then left after high school. Went to college in the U.S., went to law school in the U.S., and worked down there for a time. And now I'm back, back home. Been back, since November 2019, January 2020-ish, right around there. And it's good to be home. It's good to be back and, see people who I've lost contact with or hadn't seen in years and to meet new faces such as yourself, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So, yeah. So that's a little bit about me. My paternal grandfather are Siksika Councillor and Francis Muriel Osoup. Mm-hmm. And then my maternal grandparents are from the U.S., from the Oneida Nation and Mohawk Nation, are Villa Summers and then Philip Cook on my mom's side. So
oh wow, Mohawk
and Oneida. Yeah, my mom is Turtle Clan. From the Oneida side, and her father's Mohawk.
Wow.
And so in that lineage, the clan gets passed down through the mothers. So I'm Turtle Clan, but I don't pass that on to my kids. It ends with me. My sister can still pass it on, but I can't.
Yeah.
But my kids are. So my wife is from the Navajo Nation.
Yeah.
And so my kids have clans passed to them through my wife, through their mother.
Yeah.
So they are, and I know we have some nation members who are part Navajo, so I'll introduce that. My wife is Todach Ini, which is a Bitterfruit clan. That's her father's clan. And her mother's clan is Hashkan at Sohe, which stands for Yucca Fruit people. Mm-hmm. So those are my kids. My kids are Yucca Fruit, Hashkan at Sohe.
Oh, so, wow.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I did not know that. That's kind of cool to just know a little bit more about you.
Right.
Cool. Yeah, no. Yeah, but just to start off the conversation a little bit, like what we do on these interviews is we just kind of discuss kind of fun topics, kind of not like actual factual topics. But
okay, that's cool.
Yeah, I guess one of the topics is what's one thing that, cool thing that you could see happening on the reserve in terms of like let's say cool. I know one of the topics that came up was a cool. One of the guys was like, if there was like some sort of like, if we had our own sports, what do you call them? Sports store to where you could buy your own golf clubs and stuff. Yeah. It's just stuff like that. What kind of stuff could you see happening?
Well, one thing I think is very realistic.
Yeah.
In terms of like cool, fun stuff, right? Because there's many needs of the nation that, we need to address as chief and council. But one of the fun things, is, and it's still serious, would be the building of an outdoor skate park on Siksika, wow. Right? Because I've been to my children are skaters and stuff, and there's a lot of that's a very strong culture.
Yeah.
Right. The skating sport, right? There's a kind of a culture and lifestyle behind it. And I think it's pretty strong here on Siksika. Mm-hmm. Well, and one of my external duties is I'm on the board of directors for Cousin Skate Company, and I work with them and along with Carlin Blackrap, who's also on council with me. We attend these meetings and we try to just make sure if we can't bring some of those opportunities to Siksika. So it'd be cool to have like our own skate park, that's just kind of in a safe place, well patrolled, things like that. So yeah, I would love to see one of those, and that hasn't left my radar. It's still on there, but you just kind of have to deal with things, when the timing's right, and when the funding's right, and all these other factors come into play. But I would love to have a skate park.
Yeah, that would be one of the cool things to have too. Yeah. Also too, like you also mentioned too that you kind of you moved back. What was one of the things that made you want to come back? Like personally, what was it? Because
really a connection, right? So when I left Siksika, I was, I left college. I left high school, went down to college in the U.S., and I followed the same path as my parents. Like I went to the same schools my parents and my grandparents went to. They both Both my parents and both my grandparents attended Brigham Young University in Utah. It's a privately owned school owned by the Mormon Church. It's a good school, great school. In fact, at one time it had the highest number of Native American students in the country, in the United States there. Yeah. So it has a very strong history of educating indigenous youth. So I went down there and, checked it out, met my wife, and we got married. When I was down there, though, I wasn't able, I lost contact with my community. This is when I went down there. I didn't even have a cell phone. Cell phones weren't even really as widespread as they are now, right? Because this was like early 2000. This is like in the year 2000, late 2000, early 2001. Didn't have that connection. There was no Facebook. There's no social media. There was phone calls, and that was about it. Not even text messages, right?
Wow.
So when I went down there, I kind of lost connection and with my friends and community and stuff. And I also learned the difference between First Nations and Native Americans in my family, because my mom is, a Native American from the United States, and my dad is First Nations from Canada. I didn't necessarily knew what that meant as it pertains to everyday life. So when I applied for Native American scholarships, the ones that required a census number, which is the American version of a treaty number, I wasn't able to qualify for those because I didn't have a census number. I have my treaty number, like all of us here on Siksika, right? 4,300, the rest is our own individual numbers. Down there, they have census numbers. My wife had them, and all her friends and family had them, but I didn't have them. So legally speaking, was I considered Native down there? You're not federally recognized.
Wow.
And which means you're not eligible for certain programs and funding and things like that. So I was still able to make it work. But on top of that, I just, whenever I went and down there in the U.S., I'd say I'm Blackfoot or Siksika. Yeah. And, just I had to explain what it was to a lot of people because they didn't know what Siksika was, like I said before, social media. So it was good to leave, to go expand my horizons and get some education. I worked for the United Nations for a little bit in Switzerland while I was an undergrad student at BYU. But it wasn't home. Yeah. It wasn't home. We're recording right now in Old Sun. I attended Old Sun Nursery School. In fact, just out here, they used to have this playground out the front.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, and there's used to be these mobile homes just over here, just south of us here. And that's where the teachers used to live. And I grew up riding the bus. I went to Arrowwood School. I went to Moss Lee School. I went to Strathmore for school and schools in the area. And I just miss that. I miss the people who I kind of grew up with, and I miss a lot of what we had here. And when I was a student, I didn't have enough money to travel to come back home, or when I was a working professional, I didn't have the time. And I just felt like the more and more I'm away from home, the harder it's going to be for me to really kind of come, not me, but my children to come back and have Siksika as part of their identity, right? I mean, I know a lot of people say this about their specific tribes, but I definitely believe it. It really is a privilege and an honor to be from Siksika. Yeah. I mean, looking at just our history, our the things we've accomplished and how we've contributed to the world, right? It's amazing, and there's a lot of things that I just needed to feel connected with. And so that was a big reason why I came home, was just to come back and feel that connection, right? And to try to learn some things I didn't have the opportunity to learn about when I was younger. So I'm, that was a big reason why. So.
Oh yeah, cool. That's pretty cool. It's kind of like, I feel like it can relate to that in a sense, because I didn't go as far as you, but like I did move to Lethbridge, and then I kind of
that's far.
Yeah, it's still far. Yeah. And it was kind of, although I liked it down there, it still wasn't home. So I kind of felt the need to move back. So which is what kind of basically the same reason that I moved back. So I also noticed that you were you were a lawyer too, right?
I am. I was a lawyer. I am a lawyer. I plan to stay a lawyer for the rest of my working career. Wow. Yeah. I currently have a license out of the United States. Yeah. Out of the State Bar of Wisconsin. Yeah. I've been a lawyer, a lawyer, but they say attorney down there since 2012. Yeah. And I practice in the areas of criminal law and like social services law, And I was a prosecutor for a few years. I worked for one of the big gaming law firms in Phoenix that worked on a lot of the Indian casinos down there. Yeah. I hated that job. I hated that work, but I made some good friends down there. Yeah. And then most recently, I was a judge for a tribe in New Mexico.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so there was a real judge. I heard
Yeah.
real cases, real homicides, real
Crazy.
aggravated, violent type cases, and
Yeah,
and I was in trial a lot. I was in court.
yeah,
I did trials, and I had just like you see on TV. You see the
Yeah.
lawyer in the suit,
yeah.
talking in front of a jury. That's what I did.
Wow,
So,
crazy.
Yeah, it was good, and I still maintain my license out of the United States because it's just easier to keep it once you have it, as opposed to let it lapse and then have to go and recertify again or get your credentials up again. So I'll probably just always keep it.
Yeah. So I would imagine that you're to study or to become that, you would have to be big into epistemology, right? Am I right?
Okay, epistemology. You mean is that
Like just a different, like sort of philosophic. So like when you look at something, it's like you gotta look at, in a sense that, how do I explain it? Like the color green, right? Just because everybody says it's the color green,
right?
we just call it the color green, right?
Right, but
yeah.
Is it actually green?
Yeah.
Is
Is it
what you
actually?
mean?
Yeah. Kind of just basically. Did you have to be very?
There's a lot of things you kind of have to know and be aware of. Especially if you're a lawyer. If you're a lawyer representing, cattle ranchers, well, you got to know what it's like, what ranching is like.
Yeah.
You got to know when cattle go through, when they go to market, when they need to be fed, or if you're representing ranchers or farmers, you have to kind of understand that. So, the area that I was in really did a lot of, like I said, like family law and stuff like that, and criminal law. So I had to kind of learn, as each case would come up, I'd have to learn a little bit about that area, right?
Yeah.
So, I have to learn. I know a lot about standard field sobriety tests.
Oh yeah.
And things like that, because I had to understand it. I had to question officers when they pull someone over. If they gave the wrong test, what does that mean? And did they use the conclusions of that faulty test to justify an arrest? Et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, you definitely have to be aware of some things. I guess that makes me a good contestant for Jeopardy, because I know a lot of useless information that's just stored up here that I don't get to use every day, but every now and then I'll come up with some great information or a tidbit that really comes out helpful, and people are like, wow, you knew that? And I'm like, I guess. So that's a very good point for sure.
Yeah. Cool. No, I was just asking just because I felt like I kind of, I think it was in my third year. I delved into philosophy, and it was actually one of the topics that I had really had a hard time. But it wasn't until I think they actually had a lawyer, or they had a lawyer, or I think it was a judge, came in and they talked about epistemology.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I think one of the big questions was just because somebody's criminal, I think that's. Does it mean they're actually a criminal? Right. Like, does it make them like? Well, what if somebody has never heard of being criminal activity? Does it to them? Is it like just stuff like that? Yeah. So I was like a little curious, because like I felt like made it just the way he talked just made it seem like everybody who studies law, is kind of thinks like that.
There's definitely some core set of classes that you go into, and if anybody does go to law school, typically it's not really a degree you go into right away. It's good to kind of have a background degree. So for me, my background was in international relations and political science and political philosophy. And that's a very common background for people going into law school, because there's a lot of transferable knowledge and skills that you can use from that lower degree to use toward law school. But I knew one guy who had graduated in dance. Like modern dance, and that was his major, and he had a bachelor's degree in like modern dance. He had some prerequisites that showed his ability to be successful as a law student, so he was admitted. Wow. But a lot of us, when we go, have a lot of that similar background, similar training. So I could see why that professor or judge was telling you about epistemology and that. One of the classes that helped me a lot was political philosophy.
Oh, wow.
And I had to read Machiavelli and some other things like that. And it really introduces you to a way of thinking, right? Yeah. What I found is that a lot of times we can kind of become creatures of habit, not only in how we behave, but also in how we think. And challenging and learning about different philosophies and the way people think and then being able to incorporate that in your life, I think is very important, very useful. So a lot of law students and lawyers have that as a background. So yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. No, yeah. It's just I figured I would ask that, but also too, my next question really pertains to more so like the nation. I know there's been like I know some people have been worried more so about the culture and stuff. Pertaining to language, how important do you think the language is to the people, or to you yourself? Like, because for myself, I feel that it's a big part of my identity. You know, trying to learn it, but also too, it's kind of hard to balance. Like, in this fast-paced world, you know, I'm kind of like finding myself. I'm leaning more towards work, then I don't have time to learn about language, and then it's hard to like balance everything out.
Well, that's a good question, because I know, I guess one of the things about me is I'm not fluent in the language. In fact, it was Chief Fox who from the Blood Tribe. He was talking. He said everybody's a Blackfoot speaker. Some just know more than others. Yeah. And I thought it was a very inclusive statement, because I wasn't raised with the language. As you heard me say earlier, my mom is not Blackfoot, so she wouldn't know. And my father wasn't raised in his home like many people on Siksika were. So he wasn't able to have it taught to him. So I only had very little basic instruction when I went to Arrowwood School, and then a little bit in Strathmore. And it wasn't enough necessarily for me to fully absorb it, right? Because I feel like when you're learning a language, you're also learning a thought process, right? Some languages are very descriptive, some are very literal, some are very figurative. And the way you structure concepts to create a thought or a concept and to communicate that is different, right? And so that's what I think is a very important part, is that the language, when you just, it's more than just making words with your mouth. It's arranging things. It's a thought, and the culture is in the logic of the language. Yeah. And I think it's very important. Yeah. Like I said, I don't speak a whole lot of it, and I'm sure people will roll their eyes when they hear the Blackfoot I speak, because I'm still learning. But I'm trying to. Yeah. It hasn't been a huge part in my life growing up until recently. I would say in the last 10 years or so. Really, when I became a father. Yeah. I have 4 kids. And when and where I could teach them, the Blackfoot language, or my wife would teach them the Navajo language, and my wife and I are very similar boats when it comes to knowing our language. The times I've been able to implement it and teach them, my children have really latched on to it. Mm-hmm. And so our language is incredibly important. I remember seeing a post somewhere on some type of social media outlet or whatever. The question was asked, someone asks natives, what's the difference between the land, the language, and the culture, and what it means to them? The answer is they're all the same. Yeah, definitely. It's all who we are. Mm-hmm. We are the land. We are the language. We are the culture. And that's what makes what Canada's done so destructive, is that cultural genocide, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It has always been about wiping us out. Mm-hmm. And the fastest and easiest way to do that is to keep us from learning our language and learning our prayers. Mm-hmm. So when I've been on council, and this, like I said, is my second term, when I've been on council with people who speak fluently, Jenny Gooden, our previous counselor, was very fluent and was able to teach us and instruct us and help us and guide us along and coach us. It was very comforting and very, very encouraging, knowing that we had some of that knowledge and authenticity behind us, right? Mm-hmm. So, but like you said, there's a lot of things that we have to do in a day, and we only have so much time, and so sometimes we're not able to devote as much to the language as we'd like to. Mm-hmm. But I'll give you an example. Being able to talk to, because one of the things that we're working on right now is to bring back a police department, a police force that would employ culturally sensitive policing tactics on Siksika, different than what the RCMP has done. Yeah. In talking about who the RCMP are, or what the relationship is with us, a lot of the insight could be in the actual definition of the language. And one of them is, the word for police is Enogeekwigs, is how I understand it, which means to capture. Mm-hmm. The reasons behind that, I'm sure there are many, why that word was chosen, and it's very descriptive. Explaining that to different politicians or different ministers or whatever why we need our own police force and why that police force needs to be policed by Siksika, and to explain the, I guess, complicated history we've had with the RCMP and other police forces. Knowing how we to call that concept the police in Ogikwaks has really gone a long way in helping other people who are non-native, non-Siksikaans, understanding why we're doing it. Yeah. And so the times I've been able to use the language as little as I know have been very beneficial in a lot of instances and settings. But I don't use it every day. Just because I don't have it to use every day. So
yeah, definitely, like just like stuff like that, like I know, like it's in the back of my mind sometimes, and I'm like, I should speak it more, I should speak it more, I should speak it more.
Right.
I think also too the thing that the little things that help me though are although I don't know of many who are trying to do it, but I also think the for me the Siksika app was actually something that actually really helped. I don't know if it's updated. I have it. I have the Siksika app. I did just switch phones not too long ago, but I have the Siksika app, and I have I have the Siksika app, and I have a couple other apps from some of the other Blackfoot Confederacy nations that have apps out there and stuff like that. But as cool as apps are, and it's very and it's a good modern way to teach things. Nothing beats sitting down with a grandpa or grandma or auntie or uncle and just hearing it and taught to you the old school way. Right? Definitely.
And so there's a time limit. Like I said, my grandmother was not from my dad's mom was not from Siksika. Only my grandpa Cecil was, and he's no longer with us. And my aunt Amelia was also a fluent speaker. She's no longer with us. There's a time limit on how we have to learn the language in the same way that our elders learned. There's a time limit, and if we don't make it a priority, then time will run out. You know, so it always makes me happy when I hear kids in the community speaking Blackfoot, or when I hear even people younger than me speaking it. Right? I love that we speak it all the time, and some things I'll hear things I don't understand, or I'll surprise myself and say, "Hey, I knew exactly what they were saying." You know what I mean? Those moments are really encouraging. But yeah, I think I remember what else I was going to say, but I think that answers that question.
Definitely. It's just something that has been on the back of my mind too. Like I was saying, but you know, I think we're almost running out of time. I think I'll close off the conversation. Okay. Just with some outing remarks. You know, thank you so much for taking the time to come in. It was a wonderful interview. Very. It looks like we killed off about 22 minutes.
Okay, that's good. Awesome.
Good. They actually go by super fast. The interview.
Do they? Good. Well, I encourage you to reach out to other members of council, other stories. You know, we're a team. We're united, and we're stronger when we know each other. And so it'd be good to have other members of council and leadership on here.
Yeah.
So that's cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. All right.
And everybody, see ya.
Get a Mutson.